Once again, this is the Semansa Academic and Counseling Institution, and we have a program of restoring and cultivating successful human relationship. This week, and in this program, we are dedicated to teach people in our society of Tanzania why should we really recheck, reinvest, and actually review our informal education sector. The only way for a country to develop, it actually depends on people's participation. When we lack people's participation, a country actually overall relies on the government investment to the development of the nation. However, we cannot rely on the government alone and the private institutions. We should further extend this energy to the participation of individual persons in our community. Now, today we want to focus on why should we actually recheck and reinvest again in the informal education. The thinking of the people in our country, Tanzania, is actually controlled by the informal education. Informal education covers the music, it covers the movies, it covers sports, it covers normal conversation that people get. It also covers the conferences we get out of the conferences that are taught out of the class or formal education curriculum. In other words, what I'm trying to say is that the thinking of the people in our state is actually controlled by the information that has its sources from the informal education. However, if you analyze the kind of information we get from the informal sources, it's actually entertainment. Now the question is, if we are thinking of making our people participate into the development process, then we should have people who think of their contribution, who think of their participation. But currently we don't have those people. What we have today is people who are thinking on how much they will benefit from their own works, from their own education. In other words, we are having selfish-centered people. Now the only way to solve that is using informal education. How can we do that? The only way to implement the effective utilization of the informal education is by engaging all people who have access to the television, who have access to the control of the media, who have access to the control of these organized conferences for students, for the public, and all these arrangements that bring people together informally. They should all aim at generating an education that propels a community that thinks in contribution rather than private ambition. In other words, we should focus on teaching our people in all places we could use, in all sources we could use, educating them on how and why is it important for them to get engaged into the process of contributing for the welfare of their own nation. Now, I would give an example. Informal education could produce two things. It could produce leadership and it could also produce contribution. Now, leadership should be redefined. We have places that have governments but they lack leadership. We have places where we have politicians but we lack leaders. And this could be because we fail to actually correctly define leadership. Now, what is leadership? I have tried to define leadership as a process of discovery and executing a service that one has for the welfare of other people. That is my first definition of leadership. Number two, leadership is also the effective utilization of all the resources around a human. In other words, if a human is around a human, then a human is a resource. Then it has to be effectively utilized. If there is land, it has to be effectively utilized. If there is any other resources around, then they should be effectively utilized. In conclusion, leadership is therefore the discovery of your service and also the effective utilization of resources around you such that they could be for your own benefit, for the benefit of other people, and for the welfare of your nation. Now, coming to a conclusion on how leadership and contribution could be of benefit to a country is by using an example of politicians. The problem we have in a country like Tanzania is that we have politicians who make promises and wait for the government budget, for the government annual budget, for the fulfillment of their promises. Most of the politicians do not explain to us how are they going to effectively use the people in their region. How are they going to effectively use the land in their region? How are they going to effectively use the business community in their region? How are they going to use the private institution to develop their places? So once we have people with a thinking that they could effectively utilize all the resources around them for the benefit of the society, that's when we have success in a community. The conclusion, therefore, for this discussion today is that our country has the ability to develop. And the only way to develop and advance from our current situation is by effectively engaging our people and effectively utilizing the resources around us. And the only way to do that is using the informal education. which will reach all people without looking at their history, without looking at their location, but it will reach them with an education that they have a responsibility towards the development process of their country. And once we are successful in igniting this spirit that every citizen has a responsibility to develop his environment, to develop people around him or his nation, then we shall begin cultivating successful development in our nation. Thank you.